Black woman asked to leave VIP lounge, then she showed her ID and everything changed. Chapter 1. The lounge behind the velvet rope. The Atlanta International Airport buzzed with its usual mid-afternoon chaos, announcements echoing overhead, luggage wheels dragging across tiled floors, and the occasional crying toddler drowning in the crowd noise. But behind a velvet rope and glass-paneled door marked VIP lounge access by invitation only, the noise seemed to stop. Naomi Sinclair paused in front of the entrance, adjusting the strap of her worn leather tote bag. Her travel outfit was simple: dark jeans, a pale green cardigan, and black flats. Her long box braids were pulled into a loose bun. No designer luggage, no makeup, no watch that screamed prestige. But inside that worn tote were documents that could command entire parliaments. She nodded politely at the front desk and approached the reception counter. The woman behind the desk, Catherine, glanced up. Blonde, maybe in her early 40s, sharp jawline, sharp voice. She offered Naomi a fleeting smile before quickly scanning her up and down. "Can I help you?" Catherine asked in a tone that didn't quite mask her doubt. "Yes," Naomi replied, calmly placing her boarding pass and a small, sleek black card on the counter. "I'm here for the United International VIP Lounge." Catherine looked at the card, embossed with a globe and gold lettering, and hesitated. Then she looked back at Naomi. "Do you have something else? Maybe a corporate ID?" Naomi met her eyes. "That card is issued directly by the diplomatic security team. It should be sufficient." A pause. Catherine gave a tight nod and, without another word, clicked a few keys on her computer. Naomi could feel it already, that uncomfortable weight in the air. The kind of scrutiny that clings to your skin, subtle but suffocating. It wasn't her first time experiencing it. It wouldn't be the last. "You can have a seat," Catherine said, gesturing stiffly to the far side of the lounge. Naomi walked in and settled into an armchair by the window. She pulled out a paperback and tried to tune out the undercurrent of tension. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Then a group of 3 white business travelers, 2 men in suits and a blonde woman in heels, strolled in. They were met with beaming smiles from Catherine, offered bottled water, and ushered to the premium seating section near the bar. Naomi watched as one of them. The woman laughed and joked with Catherine like old friends. Not a glance in Naomi's direction. After 20 minutes, Naomi stood and walked to the bar area. A tall male bartender avoided eye contact. "Excuse me," Naomi said gently. "Could I get some water?" He blinked, hesitated. "Sorry, ma'am. This area is for premium-level clients only. You might be in the wrong section." Naomi raised an eyebrow, but before she could respond, Catherine appeared behind her, voice louder now, just enough for the lounge to hear. "Ma'am, you've been sitting here for some time now. We've checked your card, and while it's unusual, we can't verify it in our system. This section is reserved for high-tier guests." Naomi stood still, calm, too calm. "I'm sorry, are you asking me to leave?" she asked, keeping her tone measured. "I'm saying this lounge is for actual VIPs, Catherine snapped, then added with a brittle smile, "unless you can prove who you really are." The room went quiet. The laughter stopped. A glass clinked somewhere. All eyes turned toward Naomi. And for a moment, everything froze. The assumptions, the doubt, the humiliation hanging heavy in the air. Then Naomi reached into her tote bag. Slowly. Chapter 2. Identity checked. Truth revealed. Naomi reached into her tote bag with slow, deliberate movements. The silence was heavy, not just awkward, but electric. A room full of people who had stopped pretending not to watch. Catherine stood frozen, arms crossed but uncertain. A nearby businessman lowered his coffee cup mid-sip. From the tote. Naomi pulled out a sleek black leather folder and unclipped its flap. She unfolded a navy blue ID card encased in a transparent sleeve. At its center gleamed the golden seal of the United Nations Human Rights Council. She placed it on the counter in front of Catherine without saying a word. Then she added a letter, crisp, official, embossed with the insignia of the G20 Secretariat. Across the top it read, "Official invitation, Dr. Naomi Sinclair, Distinguished Keynote Speaker, Global Equity and Education Panel, Geneva Summit." At the bottom, a signature. The UN Secretary-General's. Catherine's face changed in an instant, color draining from her cheeks as her eyes darted between the documents, her fingers trembling slightly. I didn't realize," she stammered. A voice rose from the far end of the lounge. "I know who you are." A man in a tailored gray suit stood, smiling broadly. He was in his mid-50s, East Asian, glasses perched neatly on his nose. "You're Dr. Naomi Sinclair," he said. "I watched your speech at the G20 livestream last week. You spoke about digital disparity in developing nations. It was inspiring." Naomi gave a small nod, graceful as ever. The man turned to the others in the lounge. She made half the room stand up and applaud, even got the Turkish delegate to admit Western tech policies were flawed. Now whispers moved like wind through the room. "She's that Naomi Sinclair? No way. She looked so ordinary." Catherine stepped back, visibly rattled. A man in a navy suit, the lounge floor manager, judging by his badge, approached. "Dr. Sinclair," he said, awkwardly clearing his throat. "We deeply apologize for this oversight. We will ensure your comfort immediately." Naomi turned to him with calm poise. "There's no need for special attention. I only wanted water." No, we insist," he said, motioning frantically to a staff member nearby. Naomi gave a soft smile. "Perhaps instead of rushing to serve me now, we could take a moment to reflect on what just happened." The room stilled again. "I was asked to leave not because of my behavior, nor my credentials," she continued, her voice clear and deliberate, "but because I didn't look the part." Catherine lowered her eyes. "Bias," Naomi said, turning gently toward the others, "often doesn't come in shouting. It comes in the quiet moments, in the glance that lingers too long, the tone. That changes the assumptions made before a word is spoken." Her eyes drifted, not to the room, but inward, to a classroom in Tennessee decades ago. She was 10. Her name on the roster was spelled wrong, again. A teacher told her gently, "Sweetheart, this school is a little advanced for someone with your background. Maybe a local charter would suit you better." She remembered being told not to read ahead of the class, to keep her hair less distracting. That she was too assertive for a girl. At 12, she applied for a private science academy and was told she didn't fit the cultural tone. The admissions counselor had smiled the whole time. The memory passed like a ripple, but it grounded her words now. "I've spent my life in rooms where people underestimated me before I even spoke," Naomi said, her tone unwavering. "And I used to try to prove them wrong, to fight the labels. But I've learned something better." She looked directly at Catherine. "You don't erase prejudice by shouting. You melt it with presence. You confront it by refusing to become what they expect you to be." The businessman who recognized her clapped softly. A few others joined. Unsure but sincere. Catherine finally whispered, "I'm truly sorry, Dr. Sinclair." Naomi nodded, not coldly, but with strength. "It's not just about me. It's about the next person who walks in here and looks like me or doesn't. Fit what you imagine success looks like." The floor manager took a deep breath. "We'll be reviewing our training protocols." Naomi turned back to her seat. As she passed by the others, the same eyes that once judged her now stared with something close to reverence or guilt. She wasn't interested in either. She took her seat, picked up her paperback again, and said, "Nothing more." Chapter 3. The Weight of Assumptions. The lounge manager returned with a silver tray of refreshments and 2 staff members in tow. Visibly nervous. "Dr. Sinclair," he began with a tight, formal smile, "we'd be honored to offer you a private seating area with complimentary service for the remainder of your stay." Naomi looked up from her seat, her expression unreadable. "Thank you," she said evenly, "but I'd prefer to remain right here." The tray lingered, untouched. The manager cleared his throat, then gestured discreetly to Catherine, who stood a few feet away, clearly rattled. "We would also be happy to issue a formal apology in writing from the staff involved." Naomi raised a hand gently. "What I'd appreciate more," she said, "is a conversation." The manager blinked. "A conversation?" "Yes," Naomi said, "with your staff, all of them." There was a pause, not resistance, but confusion. "Here?" he asked. Naomi stood, her height calm and commanding. "Yes, in here." Every available employee from the lounge bar staff, front desk receptionists, servers, even custodial workers had gathered at one end of the lounge. Some looked uncertain, others curious. Catherine lingered near the back, arms crossed, but no longer defiant. Naomi stood before them, not on a stage, not raised, just present. "I'm not here to shame anyone," she began. "That's not my goal." She looked around the room, meeting a few pairs of eyes before continuing. "I'm here to tell you that what happened to me today has happened before, and not just to me." She took a breath, not of hesitation, of memory. "I was expelled in 6th grade, Naomi said softly, "for bringing books that weren't part of the school curriculum. I loved to read. I carried Maya Angelou and Carl Sagan in my backpack. My teachers thought I was showing off. They called me disruptive. Some of the staff shifted uncomfortably. In high school, I applied for a full academic scholarship to a top university," she continued. "The counselor said, 'We've never had a black girl pursue nuclear physics. Are you sure you don't want to try social sciences?' I didn't get the scholarship." A gasp slipped from someone in the room. "I didn't fight back with anger. I fought back with persistence." Naomi held up her ID again, the UN crest catching the light. "I graduated from MIT with honors. I earned my doctorate in global policy and later advised on educational access across 6 continents. Not because I'm an exception, but because I refuse to accept the world's limited view of who I could be." A silence settled in the room. Not discomfort, but introspection. "Bias isn't always loud," she said, her voice softer now. "It's not always a slur or a slammed door." She glanced toward Catherine, then back to the others. "Sometimes bias is in the look that lingers just a second too long. In the question asked of one person but not another. In the way someone's credentials are doubted before they're even checked." From the side of the room, a voice broke the silence. "I see you," the voice said. "Shakily." Naomi turned. It was a young black woman in a staff uniform. Her name tag read Tasha. Her eyes glistened with tears. "I've worked here for 3 years, Tasha said, her voice cracking. "No one's ever mistaken me for a manager, or even asked what I do outside of work." Naomi smiled gently. Tasha continued, "I have a degree in psychology, but people see my skin, my braids, this uniform, and they assume I don't belong anywhere beyond the kitchen." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Until you walked in today, I forgot I could be more." Several staff members lowered their heads. The emotional weight was unmistakable. "I'm not angry," Naomi said, addressing them all again, "and I'm not fragile. But I am tired." She let the sentence linger. "I'm tired of rooms like this one, polished, exclusive, becoming mirrors of the same assumption. that professionalism has a color, that success has a dress code, that dignity must be earned instead of honored. Catherine's shoulders sagged. She looked human. Flawed but reachable. Naomi stepped forward. This lounge, this moment, it's not about me being a VIP. It's about what kind of people we expect to see in spaces of value. And more importantly, what kind of people we don't expect. She paused. That expectation, unchecked, becomes policy. And policy becomes exclusion. One by one, the staff nodded. Even the bartender from earlier, who had refused her request for water, stepped forward and said quietly, "I'm sorry." "I accept your apology," Naomi said. "But don't stop at apology. Ask more questions. Unlearn the subtle things you were taught about what authority, excellence, or elegance looks like." Then she turned back to Tasha. "And Tasha, don't wait for someone to see your worth. Shine until they can't look away." Tasha wiped her cheeks and nodded, her voice barely audible. "Thank you." Naomi returned to her seat. The room slowly returned to its routine, but nothing felt quite the same. The tray of refreshments still sat untouched. Now irrelevant. Naomi didn't need bottled water or a premium seat. She had something far more powerful now. Room that had listened. Chapter 4. From bias to breakthrough. By the time Naomi's flight was announced, the energy in the VIP lounge had shifted entirely. Smiles were real now. Conversations hushed but warm. Tasha stood taller. Catherine looked inward, but outside that glass door, the world had already begun to shift. It started with a woman sitting by the espresso bar, a freelance journalist on her way to New York. She had seen everything, from Catherine's initial coldness, to the visible shift in the room when Naomi laid down her credentials, to the quiet power of her impromptu speech. As Naomi exited the lounge, the journalist, Elena Marquez, caught up with her near gate 36. "Dr. Sinclair?" she asked. "I was in the lounge earlier. I don't want to intrude, but may I ask a few questions? Off the record, if you prefer." Naomi smiled politely, not surprised. "Only if this story won't be used to punish any individuals." "What happened?" "Today wasn't about a person. It was about a pattern." Elena nodded. "Understood." Naomi leaned gently on her carry-on. "Then yes, ask." The interview was short, maybe 10 minutes. Elena filmed a brief segment with her phone. Naomi, in her travel cardigan and jeans, speaking with grace and clarity. "I've learned," Naomi said in the video, "that the most effective way to fight bias is not with blame or bitterness, but with undeniable presence. I don't want revenge. I want reflection." She paused, her gaze steady on the camera. Bias doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. It lives in small looks, small delays, small doubts. But if we start listening for those whispers, we can start changing the story, one room at a time. Elena posted the video that evening with the caption, "This happened at Atlanta International today. Watch it all." Then ask yourself, what does real dignity look like? Within 6 hours, the video hit 1.2 million views. By the next morning, it was everywhere. #dignity DOESN single quotes T ask for ID trended worldwide. People of all ages and backgrounds began sharing their own stories, being followed in stores, questioned at hotel lobbies, mistaken for assistants, ignored in boardrooms. A woman in Sweden shared that she was once mistaken for a nanny in her child's school. A man in Nigeria recalled being denied boarding on a first-class ticket until he showed his company's letterhead. An Asian American surgeon posted, "I was asked to take out the trash at a medical conference." And then came the letters, Naomi's. Inbox flooded. Some wrote from hospital beds, some from classrooms, some from prisons. Some were simply, "Tired. 3 days later, The Atlanta International Airport Authority held a press conference. Their spokesperson, flanked by executives and diversity officers, addressed the nation. After reviewing the events at our VIP lounge, he said, "We are launching a new internal training program called Unseen Borders, designed to explore unconscious bias, assumptions, and access." He paused, then smiled. The curriculum will be developed with guidance from Dr. Naomi Sinclair. Cameras flashed. Naomi, sitting quietly in the second row, said nothing. She didn't need to. That night, alone in her hotel room, Naomi opened her laptop. Between offers to appear on talk shows and invitations from NGOs were hundreds of emails. Marked, "Thank you." But one stood out. It was from a 15-year-old girl in Mississippi. Her name was Layna. "Dear Dr. Sinclair, I saw your video. I watched it 5 times. I never thought someone who looks like me could be in a VIP room and not be questioned. When I saw you, I saw myself. Thank you for making me feel like I can belong somewhere too. Love." Layna. Naomi leaned back in her chair, blinking through a wave of quiet emotion. Not everything she had done that day had been for an audience, but maybe, just maybe, someone had been waiting her whole life to see a woman like Naomi. In that room, holding her head high, refusing to shrink. The next morning, Naomi boarded a flight to Geneva, this time seated in first class. The flight attendant handed her a warm towel, smiling. "I just wanted to say," the attendant whispered, "your video changed the way I look at my passengers." "And myself," Naomi smiled. "That's all I hoped for." She gazed out the window as the plane ascended into the clouds, soft, endless. BORDERLESS. Chapter 5. The lounge reimagined. 6 months had passed since the incident. Naomi Sinclair rolled her carry-on through the familiar terminal of Atlanta International Airport, the echo of rolling wheels bouncing lightly off polished tiles. A few travelers recognized her. Some stared, some smiled shyly, and one or two discreetly nodded in admiration. She was no longer just a professor or a policy advisor. She had become a quiet symbol, not of protest, but of possibility. She approached the VIP lounge entrance. Something immediately felt different. The velvet rope was still there, but so were the changes. Framed portraits now lined the glass hallway. Frederick Douglass, Maya Angelou, Nelson Mandela, Angela Davis, Shirley Chisholm, and Barack Obama, each accompanied by quotes about dignity, access, and the invisible boundaries we create. Above the door, a new inscription had been installed in brushed bronze. Lettering, "Respect is the first class we all deserve." Naomi paused for a moment, letting the message settle. Inside, the decor had subtly shifted. Earthy tones softened the sterile corporate whites. A new reading nook featured books by authors of all backgrounds, fiction, nonfiction, poetry. There were pamphlets on inclusion, and even a discreet QR code linking to the Unseen Borders, training for travelers who wished to learn more. But the biggest change stood at the front desk. Dr. Sinclair. Tasha stood proudly behind the counter, now wearing a tailored navy blazer and a polished name badge. Tasha Harris, guest experience manager. Her braids were wrapped elegantly in a professional updo. Confidence radiated from her posture. "You look incredible, Tasha," Naomi said with a wide grin. "So do you," Tasha beamed. "But more importantly, thank you. You changed everything here." "I mean that." Tasha motioned around the room. "We've restructured how we greet guests, how we train staff, how we see people, and I got promoted." Naomi's eyes lit up with pride. "You earned that. You were always meant to lead." Behind the desk, another familiar figure emerged. Catherine. Her eyes were softer now, her posture humbler. She approached with hesitation, holding a small envelope. "Dr. Sinclair," she began, voice low but sincere. "I've wanted to say this. For a long time, I completed the full program. Not just what was required, all of it. She handed Naomi the envelope. Inside was a certificate, completion of advanced bias awareness and cultural competency training, signed by Naomi herself. As the curriculum's global advisor, Naomi looked up, surprised. I requested your course, Catherine added, almost sheepishly. And I've also joined an employee group working on internal accountability. I didn't know what I didn't know. And I'm sorry. Naomi didn't hesitate. She smiled gently and extended her hand. We don't need people punished, she said. We need people awakened. Catherine's shoulders eased. For the first time, she looked at Naomi not as an intruder, but as a mirror. Naomi walked to the far corner of the lounge, to that chair, the one she'd been told she didn't belong in, the one she'd nearly been asked to leave. She sank into it, letting its weight hold her. A server approached with a warm smile. May I offer you something to drink, Dr. Sinclair? Yes, she said. I'd love a cup of black tea, no sugar. She folded her hands in her lap, watching as travelers came and went. People of all colors, styles, accents. No one was rushed. No one was dismissed. And when a young girl in a dashiki passed by with her mother, she pointed to the photo of Naomi in the lounge's new display, a panel titled, Voices of Change. The girl whispered, That's her. Naomi smiled to herself. She didn't need applause. She had a room that now saw her, and others, correctly. As her tea arrived, Naomi looked out through the floor-to-ceiling glass. Planes lifted into the sky, each headed to different corners of the world. Boundaries didn't exist up there. Just possibilities. She sipped slowly, because sometimes the most profound revolutions don't start in parliaments or protest lines. They start in silence. In one room, with one misunderstanding, and one person brave enough to stay seated. Thank you for listening. May we all learn to see beyond appearances, speak with compassion, and stand with quiet courage. Until next time, stay kind, stay aware, and never underestimate the power of presence.